Hey everyone! So today we are going to dive into something really fascinating. It's a psychological analogy that, I'll be honest, looks completely cryptic at first glance. It's this wild puzzle that mixes ancient mythology with modern personality tests to talk about a really deep, really personal internal battle.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like total nonsense, doesn't it? You've got Greek gods, a nymph from a myth, and a corporate personality test all thrown into one sentence. But you gotta stick with me on this, because by the end, you're gonna see how this one single phrase just brilliantly captures this profound struggle over who we are and how we're seen.
Okay, so to even begin to crack this riddle, we have to clear up a huge point of confusion first. The whole thing really hinges on the letter D, but, well, it turns out not all Ds mean the same thing, not even close. And this is absolutely critical. So on one side, you've got the D from the DISC framework. You might have seen this in a workplace setting. That D stands for dominance. It describes someone who's assertive, direct, goal-oriented. But then on the other side, you've got this type D from medical psychology, created by a guy named Johann de Nolet. And that D stands for distressed. It's a clinical profile, someone who deals with a lot of negative emotions but keeps them bottled up. So you see the split, right? One D is about your style, your drive, how you get things done. The other D is about your internal state, your health risks, your distress. Getting this difference is literally the key that unlocks the entire conflict we're talking about today. All right, now that we've got our Ds straight, let's look at the internal world this riddle is describing. It mentions a fight over Apollo, and that brings in our first major psychological force, this deep-seated need for order. In this whole analogy, Apollo is that part of your personality that absolutely craves structure, logic, precision. It maps perfectly onto the C for conscientiousness in that same DISC framework. This is the part of you that loves a good routine, that values accuracy above all else, and gets real satisfaction from mastering something through slow, careful work. And then you've got the complete opposite. You've got Dionysus. He is the force of what you might call creative chaos. He represents a love for irony, for wordplay, for being mentally nimble. This is the playful, abstract side of yourself that sees something like karaoke not just as fun, but as a legitimate way to train your brain and stay flexible. But here's the thing. It's not just a simple tug of war between these two. The internal experience is described as a Da Vinci-like dramaturgy, which is just such a perfect phrase. It paints this picture of a sophisticated fusion of these two forces. It's not about one side winning. No, it's about finding that dynamic balance, blending the analytical mind of a scientist with the expressive soul of an artist. Okay, so we've got this internal drama between order and creativity, but the riddle says they're throwing something towards an echo. So let's meet the third character in this psychological play. Who or what is Echo? If you remember the myth, the nymph Echo was cursed to only repeat the last words someone else said. And in our analogy, Echo is something very similar. It's that simplistic, reductive, and often just plain wrong reflection of you that the outside world sends back. It's the label people slap on you when they can't see the complex, nuanced picture of what's really going on inside. And what is this one single, distorted reflection that Echo keeps repeating? It's that other D we talked about at the beginning, the clinical, distressed type D. The Echo takes this complex, multifaceted person and just reduces them to this one negative label. This quote from the source material just captures that feeling with such perfect dark humor. It's about that moment when you're under so much pressure, you're beside yourself, and in that vulnerability, you feel like you've been completely reduced to that simple clinical label of just being distressed and inhibited. Now, here's a really important point. This misreading, it's not always malicious. It happens because of a cognitive gap. The source calls it a lack of I+1 abilities, which is a concept from education theory. It just means the ability to understand something that's one level more complex than what you already know. So the Echo isn't necessarily being mean, it's just incapable of seeing the complexity. It's reflecting at its own, simpler level.
Okay, we have all the pieces on the board now. We've got the two different hype Ds, we've got the internal fight between Apollo and Dionysus, and we've got this external battle against a distorted Echo. Let's put it all together and finally solve this thing. So this table just lays it all out beautifully. You've got Dionysus as that creative, playful self. You've got Apollo as the structured, analytical part of your personality. The Echo, that's the outside world mislabeling you as that clinical, distressed type D. And the weapon they're throwing?
It's the DISC, not the framework itself, but the word, like a discus, a tool for self-definition being used to defend yourself. So here's the story, the full narrative. Internally, you've got this really sophisticated struggle going on to balance creativity and order. That's your Dionysus and Apollo. To make sense of this, you use a framework, the disc model. But at the same time, you're forced to fight this external battle against a crude, simplistic misinterpretation of who you are, an echo that just wants to call you distressed. And there it is. That is the heart of the Dionysian irony. You are using a tool that's designed for nuanced self-understanding, the disc, as a weapon to fight against the damage of being slapped with a blunt, reductive label from another system. It's a battle of frameworks. It's a fight for a more complete, more accurate definition of yourself. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about, doesn't it? When we feel misunderstood, when we get into those conflicts about who we are, how much of that is really just a battle against someone else's simplified, distorted reflection of us? It's a pretty powerful question about the stories we know are true about ourselves versus the labels the world tries to stick on us.